I really want to focus on married entrepreneurs. When you're married and you're incomplete emotionally, and your spouse is incomplete emotionally, you're going to damage each other. I'll just be real with you. You're going to hurt each other. That dream's going to cost you. And it's going to cost entrepreneurs, it's going to cost the spouse that's trying to support that dream. And it's not that you want to hurt your partner. It's just that you don't know how to get from them what you need without damaging them. But I'm here to help you. Hey, it's Randall with Curious Entrepreneur Podcast. Is this really a podcast?
It really is.
It's like a video cast. It's not really like a podcast.
Yeah. Well, we're moving that way.
Okay. Well, either way. It's Randall. Every week I do this. I kind of struggle with making impactful statements and making sure you really feel me and hear me. And not that there's a lot of people watching, but I still want it to be useful. So I hope this one is. This one's about emotional currency. I'm going to try to make this simple. All right. Everybody is born with $100 of emotional currency. Let's call them ECs, right? You're born with 100 ECs. Everybody. Now, as you start to grow, things start happening to you. As a young age, maybe you're abused. Maybe you were neglected. Maybe you lost a best friend. Maybe you didn't make the grades you wanted and teacher told you that you were inadequate. Maybe you experienced some poverty. Maybe you were lied to. All right. So what happens when all those things happen, all that trauma happens, is you're having to spend emotional currency to manage those experiences. So if you got 100, let me see. A good example is somebody breaks your trust. If you have 100 emotional currencies, 100 ECs, and you tell somebody your dream, I want to be a firefighter, and you're like 8 years old, and they say, you're too stupid to be a firefighter. All right. At that point, 8 years old, you're having to spend emotional currency to deal with what somebody told you. So let's call it 5 ECs because you're sad now. And everything that happens to you negatively, emotionally, takes away your emotional currency. And on the flip side, everything that happens to you positively helps to build your emotional currency bank. So you lost 5 ECs. You're at 95. That's 8 years old. Now, by the time you're 15, you've gone through some crazy stuff, some real trauma, some horrible stuff. We're talking deeper, bigger, terrifying, stuff like rape, stuff like, being bullied, being beat up, stolen from. All right. So you're burning emotional currency. And what happens as we get older, we tend not to get it rebuilt. But eventually we meet people that we really like. And some of them steal our currency. Some of them add to our currency. But either way, it's just a habit for humans, once you've lost so much emotional currency, to reach out and find somebody who can help refill you. And this is a problem, a major problem, for entrepreneurs especially, because you have this dream, you have this goal, and you've spent your emotional currency your whole life. And now when you're ready to do this big thing that you're so excited about, you got 40 ECs, just 40. And you walk into the world, you start dreaming, start talking, start working really hard. You're suffering more defeat. But now you found a self-help class. So you're managing it better, but you're still losing. And then you find somebody that makes you feel great, and they encourage you, and they build you up, and they make you happy, and they support your dreams. Now, that's the best case scenario. But that happens, and you start telling yourself, hey, I can do this now. Somebody has my back. But here's the problem, y'all. If you've lost 60 ECs throughout your life, how much have they lost? How much is that spouse that you have, that you love so dearly, how much do they really have to bring to the table? Now, people look at this different ways, but to me, it's the simplest way. If I bring 40 and you bring 62, okay, that's great. Let's call it 102. But you can't always give me 100% of your emotions, and I can't always give you 100% of mine. Because I got mine going over here, I'm investing my emotional currency over here. You're investing yours there. And then you have kids. Now you're investing emotional currency on them, and you're spending extra emotional currency making sure that they don't lose emotional currency faster, or lose it like you did. So put it all together. You're very incomplete coming to the table. In entrepreneurship, you need as much emotional currency as possible. Everything you can get. And unfortunately, you don't have it. Now, you can tell yourself that you're 100% happy, that you got it all together. You don't have it. That's called heaven. You just don't have it. Now, you can build it, and you can continue to build it for the rest of your life, but you don't have it all. So what happens when you don't have it all, but you need more? You start to go after whatever you can to make yourself feel better, to build your emotional currency back. So once again, entrepreneurs, you'll find a lot of your people that are around you that are also business owners. They drink to try to rebuild emotional currency or try to stop from losing it. They're narcissistic so that they don't lose it. They try to steal it from other people by essentially demanding praise and demanding validation for who they are. And we all know none of that works. We all know that eventually people don't want to be around you. They don't want to spend their lives praising you and lifting you up, building you up, and watching you refill your EC banks at their cost. But unfortunately, that's what happens. This is real. Like this, people rip each other apart to make themselves feel better. Now, you turn to any science, any psychology, anything you go to, it's going to tell you that somebody who would tear you down to make themselves feel better, that's a bad person to be around. But this episode is specifically, I really want to focus on married entrepreneurs. When you're married and you're incomplete emotionally, and your spouse is incomplete emotionally, you're going to damage each other. I'll just be real with you. You're going to hurt each other. That dream's going to cost you. And it's going to cost entrepreneurs, it's going to cost the spouse that's trying to support that dream. And it's not that you want to hurt your partner. It's just that you don't know how to get from them what you need without damaging them. But I'm here to help you. I learned something really cool. Number one, probably my favorite thing. You have to examine the projects you start, the dreams that you launch with your partner and see if they can actually contribute to you emotionally. I'm not saying they're going to help you build the dream or like Raekwon's here. His wife ain't running the camera. You know what I mean? She's not doing the production. But I noticed something about Raekwon. Raekwon's the production. He's right here. I can't show like a mirror, but anyhow. When I started talking to Raekwon, he was like, Randall, I got to pray about whether or not I can work with you. If I have time, I protect my time. And a guy that protects his time, or a girl, anybody relationship, if you're saying, hey, I protect my time and I got to really make sure this works, then you're taking the load off of that spouse emotionally. Because if you say, I got to have all the time, you got to back me up 100%. And if I don't have it, then you don't love me. What you're doing is stealing. You're robbing your partner's bank. And nobody wants to get robbed. But we allow ourselves to get robbed, obviously, because we love the person. And this is a whole nother thing, but that's not love. We can talk about that later. That's just not love. We're supposed to add to each other. That's the goal, is to support each other, add to each other. So as you start to look at this, look at your life after hearing this, the first thing you got to examine is, did you choose the right project? And did you do the math with your partner? So let's go deeper. There are some entrepreneurial activities that take more emotional currency than others. If you're an influencer, if that's your goal, is to build an influencing platform, you're going to get talked about a lot. You're going to get bashed online a lot. It takes a lot of emotional currency to do that. It just does. And if you're already at 40 and you got to wake up and look at your feed and people are talking about your outfit and your face and how stupid you are and how bad you look and how you're fat and all that kind of stuff, if you're at 40, you're just not going to make it. I'm going to tell you. You're not going to make it. But you have a partner. And let's say you talk to your spouse and say, hey, it's what I want to do. And the opportunity costs me 60 emotional currencies. Can you loan me 20? Now, I know you never heard that before. I know nobody's ever heard that before, but I'm telling you, it's a real thing. Can you loan me 20? All right. So how do you loan somebody emotional currency? It's something that women know very, very well. My wife's always talking about this. Quality time. If you can focus on what your partner's doing, what your spouse is doing, undivided attention, and be there to uplift and support for X amount of time in a day, in a week, you can help loan some of that emotional currency to them. But it has to go both ways. Because if you borrow it, you got to pay it back. So when you do borrow it and you do your work and you live in your dream, you got to go back to them and say, thank you. I appreciate you letting me use your emotional currency. Thank you for being there with me. Thank you for supporting me. Now, I know it's very, very, very common to not get that thank you back. To not get the, hey man, that was great. It's so much you gave to me and I'll never forget it. And I just want to, let me take you out and celebrate how awesome you are. That doesn't happen. So entrepreneurs, if you have found yourself in a situation where you're spending all your emotional currency and you can't get enough from anybody else, I encourage you to examine that project, examine that dream, or at least the breadth and depth of the dream. Examine it. See if this is the right thing to do. It might be the right goal, but just the wrong mechanism you're using, the wrong amount of time, the wrong amount of emotions. But now let's go a little deeper. Let's say that you've gone into something, you're spending emotional currency, and now let's look at your kids. You're disappointed because you're not getting what you want out of your dream. People are disappointed in you and you're experiencing failures and you become angry. So you go home, and I've done this. You go home and you're triggered by anything that does not serve your emotional bank. Now, you can say it's something different, but I'm telling you it's an emotional bank. You think everybody's trying to rob your emotional bank when you go home. Why? Because they're not lifting you up and they're not telling you how amazing you are and just groveling at your feet and, oh, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing all the hard work and I'm so thankful and you're amazing. So you feel like they're robbing you. And you get mad and you want to hurt them for trying to, what you think is hurt you. Asking you to do more stuff after you've already done a lot in the day. Everybody, if you're hearing this, you got to go back and examine what the activity you're doing. I guarantee you, if you entered it incomplete, if you didn't do the math, you're going to fail. You're going to fail yourself. You're going to fail your spouse. You're going to fail your kids in some form emotionally. Emotional currency is no joke. I mean, if you really think about it, nobody has 100. Nobody's filled. Everybody's broken. Everybody's hurt. Everybody's missing something. And when you get with somebody that you're hoping can fill you up at their cost, at their expense, I mean, you're just selfish. So, let's call selfishness the whole root of this conversation. If you're an entrepreneur and you only seek to serve yourself, I think you need to pause. I think you need to learn how to serve. One of the best things I ever did as an entrepreneur was work for a short time as a contractor inside of a massive organization called Cardinal Health. Now, I'm in there and I'm like, yeah, I got my own business. I'm my own, I'm this guy, I'm this, and I got it all together. But I had to live in Chicago without my wife, without my kids, without my friends, without my comforts to do this work. And I got to tell you, I was emotionally drained. But I got something that I had never gotten before as an entrepreneur. While working there, I learned how to serve. I learned how to be present. I learned how to put the organization over my needs. I learned how to do the things that showed that I cared about the team. I learned how to enjoy it. I learned how to express it. And I realized that was what was probably missing for me as an entrepreneur. That was holding me back. It was that emotionally I demanded that everybody made me feel better. And in that environment, there's nobody that's going to do that for you. In that environment, you have to do it for each other by doing great work together. And everybody gets built up when the team wins. Everybody's happy. But also everybody's aware that this is a big organization and we all got to do our part. And we all have something important to do in it, but we're not the only thing in it. And entrepreneurs, if you have a business, if you want to grow, I encourage you to let that go now. Let the whole, self-serving, I got to feel good, I got to be the one that wins attitude, let it go. Because I know why you're doing it. I mean, you're doing it so you can refill your emotional bank. You're doing it so you can say, I feel okay today. And I know why, when you get mad, I know what you're going to do. You're going to do what all entrepreneurs do. You're going to go home, you're going to shout at somebody. You're going to engage in some vice that makes you feel better. You're going to mistreat your partner, your spouse. You're going to mistreat your kids. You're going to disconnect from your family that doesn't agree with you. You're going to call everybody a hater. You're going to do all these things that are so cliche, all because you can't refill your emotional bank. All I'm asking you to do is, if you're low on emotional currency, examine the project you're doing and then ask for help. Ask for help, legit. Honey, can I get 10 emotional currencies from you? And she's going to say, well, what is that? And you're going to say, I need an hour today. I want you to hear me talk about what I'm going through. You'd be surprised what that does, but you can't demand it. You can't go back to your team inside your business and tell them that, they got to do these activities that are to help. They're going to help the business, but indeed they're just helping you. One of those things is sharing your wins. We have team meetings every week, and we share our wins. And there are people that will share wins that aren't even real just to get the praise. They will restructure a sentence and a situation to make sure they always get praise. I encourage you, if that's happening, be real. Say, look, I'm down. I really need to be lifted up right now. Now, you might be down every week. But that's just until we do the conference about tender entrepreneurs and we help you get up long term. But emotional currency is a real thing, y'all. I stole my wife's emotional currency. I stole other people's emotional currency. I mean, man, I beat it out of my kids. I mean, just shouting at them. It's like the rings on Sonic, or on Mario. Every time you say a harsh word to your kid, you're knocking some rings out of them. Every time you neglect your spouse, you're knocking rings out of them. Every time you yell, every time you abuse them emotionally, you're knocking rings out of them. And you're collecting those rings because you want to feel better. Every time you put somebody down, let them know that they're subordinate to you, you're knocking rings out of them. Every time you gloat, every time you make sure people hear your successes, you're knocking rings out of them. You're trying to refill your bank, but you don't have to do it that way. There's a better way, and it's called examining the actions you're taking emotionally and then asking for help when you realize you are not full enough to do that emotional work. But you got to examine your whole situation. How much emotional currency does it take to be married? How much emotional currency does it take to have children, to have parents, to have brothers, sisters, to have friends? It's a lot of emotional currency. And by the way, y'all, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna end this video because it's like on a good note, feeling pretty confident. I'd encourage you to find a group of people that you can be around and you can build each other up. I really encourage that. Find a group, get into a place where people are doing some of the same work, they're fighting some of the same battles, and you can lift each other out. I encourage you to do that. It'll help you in a huge way. And I would also encourage you to not lie about your emotions when you go home. Probably, and lastly, when you have an opportunity to share how you're really feeling with people around you, hey, I share it. Somebody asks me how I'm doing. If I'm not doing well, I'm not going to say no. I'm like, no, this sucks. It's horrible. I don't like today. And you think that's embarrassing, but actually it might be freeing them up to share how they're feeling. And then you'll find, like, imagine this, right? I'm sure this happened to you. You say something true about your feelings. Like, hey, I'm not doing good. And they're like, you know what? I'm not doing that well myself. You have a chance to encourage each other. You might say, hey, I'm not doing good. And they might say, you know what? Let me cheer you up. I'll buy you a coffee, or hey, I'll pray for you, whatever it is, you keeping your emotional doors closed at your bank. You cannot make withdrawals. You cannot make deposits. There's no activity. You're going to sit there and you're going to be waiting for something to happen that will never happen because your emotional doors are closed. Entrepreneurs, open your doors to the right things and the right people. Get that bank activity going again. Start building up those bank accounts, but also start putting that emotional currency into other people. You'll find that you'll be so happy. Being vulnerable, you'll be so happy. I'm tender for you. I'm excited for you, entrepreneurs. Emotions are a real thing. You don't have to hide them anymore. No more suppression. They affect how you do business. They affect how you win. Anyhow, this is Randall with the Curious Entrepreneur Podcast or video cast or whatever it is. What are we doing? Seeking wisdom, taking risk? Okay, well, something like that. See you next time.